Well, we're getting a lot of new releases lately, and I'm just keeping on trucking. Yeah, this is an odd one because there's... Anyway, I have a lot to say about this album, so let's just dive into it. Rise of Kasandra by TriTop. So TriTop is a relatively new progressive rock band. New in terms of this is their debut album. This is their first album, but they formed back in 2016, and they hail from Rome, Italy. And yeah, oh boy, where do I even want to start with this one? I want to start first off with what I really appreciate with this album. It's got a lot of members on it. You know, the kind of mastermind, the leader of the band, for lack of a better term, is Ivo di Trigalia, I believe. Starting off as a drummer and composer, who was then later joined by Prefrancesco, I believe, di Profi. A lot of Italian chaps here, so I'm going to try my best, and I think I'm going to stop there in terms of, shouting out the individual members of the band, because there's a lot listed here in terms of individuals, and you can feel that here. There's a lot of musicianships that's found on here. They're very talented. They've got a lot of different styles, a lot of different flavors on it. The overall essence on here is the usual retro symphonic prog kind of aspect on it, and there's a lot of moments that you feel very reminiscent of a lot of other bands. I really enjoy what these boys are doing. You know, like the first two tracks, The Rise of Kasandra and Delighted Insanity, they combine to make about 19 minutes worth of music. Rise of Kasandra being 13 minutes long and Delighted Insanity being about almost 6 minutes. And it has a lot of different ebbs and flows. You know, it's your typical retro prog, really great musicianship, lots of fun building ups and payoffs. Then we come into the second half of Islands of Servitude at 5 minutes and 11 seconds. And then the Sacred Law of Retribution at about 24 minutes. So it's really nice, structure of a retro prog, and I have to applaud them for kind of knowing where to stop, because so many retro prog bands, especially ones that like to flout with, the longer stretches of music, tend to make albums that are like an hour or an hour and a half, and I'm like, guys, especially for your debut, when you kind of want to come out to the scene, you don't need to make this grand magnum opus of music. You can just come in for about 45 minutes worth of music, really good polished off music, and kind of leave it there. And I will say that these 4 tracks provide exactly that. Now I kind of want to talk a little bit about what's keeping me from really, really loving this album, because all the elements are there. Really stand out marksmanship in terms of musicianship, amazing compositions, great use of keyboards, synthesizers, guitar works. The vocals are outstanding, getting some really good different styles within the vocal works there as well. Lyrics are top notch, loving some of the allegories and similes that they're putting down on there. Drumming, outstanding, and the structure itself is playing right to my heartstrings. You got a very clear middle part, you got an epic closing it all off. The best way that I could put some of the drawbacks about this album: there are those musicians and bands that like to wear their influences on their sleeves, and I don't want to say it irks me, but sometimes when I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh, that's an homage to Porcupine Tree. Or, oh, that's a callback to Van de Graaff Generator. Or, oh, that's a very interesting, Gentle Giant refrain that they're putting on here. What draws me out and makes it more of a thorn in my side, is when it's directly lifted off of those albums. And to put a face to it in this album, The Rise of Kasandra has a moment on here that is a direct lift off with nothing changed from the Flower King's The Truth Will Set You Free. It's the same soundscapes on the keyboards, it's the same note sequence, it's the same tempo, and it's glaringly obvious. If you've heard The Truth Will Set You Free, you'll listen to this and be like, yeah, this is The Truth Will Set You Free. Within their big track of The Sacred Law of Retribution, they have those moments that are more of homages. Like, it starts off very similar to like a Kappa song. And again, you can't quite put your finger on like which Kappa song. Then later on at the very ending of this track, you have again, the big guitar play out where there's a moment that's a direct soundscape note sequence tempo of Octavarium from Dream Theater. Again, there's no polishing, there's no changing of anything. It's literally the guitar solo moment from Octavarium. And I'm like, at least change something on it. And there's a moment on the big track that sounds very similar to a Steven Wilson track from Ascending from Hand Cannot Erase. Again, lifted right off of it. With at least with that one, there's a little bit of a change up. It's for that reason that the two tracks in the center of this album, Delighted Insanity and Islands of Servitude, are actually fairly serviceable because they don't rely so much on somebody else's crafted music. It's beyond wearing their influences on the sleeve, taking somebody else's ideas and making it your own. At this point, it's blatant plagiarism. And if, the Flower Kings or Dream Theater, heck, even if, Roland Stolt from Kappa or Steven Wilson wanted to take these guys to court being like, guys, you stole our music, they would have a case. They would absolutely have a case, And so it really pains me because, progressive rock so regularly takes homages from the past. It's especially modern prog and retro prog. That's kind of their MOs, they lean upon their influences very heavily. And in the most part, I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it because they at least rejuvenate it in some way. They recontextualize it. They modernize it. They do something different with it. But in this case, they didn't do a single thing to it. And as I mentioned, that's plagiarism. So, yeah, this, as much as I really want to like this album because the musicianship on here is top-notch, the writing style on here is top-notch, as a librarian, because that's what I do in my actual life here, I can't get behind it because that's blatant plagiarism. So, yeah, this is one that I'm torn because I want to like the music and I want to give these guys, the platform to discover their music and, really continue their career. But I also don't want to condone the style of music where they're not doing their own thing. They're literally stealing from other people. So in that case, what I'll say is this. The music on here, if you are a fan of those bands that I have quoted for these guys basically stealing their work, go and check it out. See if it's your thing. But I really want to caution other creators about doing this kind of thing. Find your own voice. Find your own styles. Use the music that you love to help influence that, but don't make that your music. Don't make that your style. So my actual rating of this and what I'll say about TriTop is Rise of Cassandra from TriTop is one I would stream, give it a listen, see if it's your thing, but on a moral stance, I almost want to say skip it. Don't encourage other artists to do what TriTop is doing. It's interesting because at least with other bands that I've covered that kind of flout with this, Crownlands, at least Crownlands, who are very obviously and blatantly stealing from Rush, at least they're incorporating and doing different things with it. They're at least trying different things. They're changing the tempos. They're changing the sounds. They're doing different note sequences. It could sound like Rush wrote it, but at least Rush didn't write it, Anyway, I've been on my high horse far too long about this one. I've ranted and raved too much about this one. That's my thoughts about Rise of Cassandra by TriTop. I have a feeling it's not going to bother most people like it's bothering me on this one. I get it. That's just my own little bugaboo. I'm praying that other bands don't do this. I'm praying TriTop's second album, because I do want to hear more music from them. I really do. As I mentioned, the talent is there. I just want to hear their own music. I want to hear what they can actually do themselves. So I'm really, really looking forward to their second album. I really want to see what they have in store. But for this one, I really hope they learn their lesson. Because, man, like I said, if a lawyer hears this music and they know what's going on, there could be some legal actions with this one. But that's where I'm going to leave it there. That's what I'm going to say for Rise of Cassandra by TriTop. What do you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So, thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.